Hello all, I want to share a video from 818 Encino. Actually, there are two videos. I had favorited these two videos a while back actually, and I've been debating whether or not I would share them. The reason why I debate so much is because some people are more sensitive to the sources of the information, but I think, in my opinion, you have to go where the knowledge is. So this person, 818 Encino, is actually a very, very good researcher. The only problem is that he is not Christian. He is Gnostic. But what I can tell you is that when he gives the information, he is not giving the information from a point of view of his own belief system. He is just giving the information. And so, as you will see for yourself, there is no Gnostic doctrine being handed out, and I believe it is, using my own discernment, I believe it is completely safe for Christians to watch and learn from. I don't believe there is any reason to listen to a Gnostic or anyone else who is outside of Christianity for any salvational type of subjects. But when it comes to these other things in the world, the mysteries, and not when I say the mysteries, I'm talking like pyramids or even pagan religions, you have to get the information from somewhere. And truth be told, a lot of Christian researchers aren't getting the job done. And truth be told, a lot of Christian teachers aren't even really Christian. They're either Freemasons, or they're Gnostics, or they're something else. So you have to get your information from somewhere. You just have to be discerning, and I believe I have discerned this information to be safe. So you can see it for yourself. I believe it is very worth watching. So there are two videos. Thank you for your time.
Sacred or temple prostitution is a sexual ritual consisting of intercourse or other erotic activity performed in the context of religious worship. Scholars have long considered such practices to be customary in the ancient world, but some prefer the term sacred sex to sacred prostitution in cases where a payment for service was not involved. Ancient Near Eastern societies along the Tigris and Euphrates rivers featured many shrines and temples, or ziggurats, dedicated to various deities. According to the 5th century BC historian Herodotus, the rites performed at these temples included sacred sex rites, and I quote, "The foulest Babylonian custom is that which compels every woman of the land to sit in the temple of Aphrodite and have intercourse with some stranger at least once in her life. Most sit down in the sacred plot of Aphrodite, by which the men pass and make their choice, and once a woman has taken her place there, she does not go away to her home before some stranger has cast money into her lap and had intercourse with her outside the temple. But while he casts the money, he must say, 'I invite you in the name of Mylitta.' It does not matter what the sum of money is. The woman will never refuse, for that would be a sin. The money being by this act made sacred." So she follows the first man who casts it and rejects no one. After their intercourse, having discharged her sacred duty to the goddess, she goes away to her home, and thereafter there is no bribe, however great, that will get her. So then the women that are fair are soon free to depart, but the uncomely have long to wait, because they cannot fulfill the law, for some of them remain for 3 years or 4. So in other words, in ancient Babylon, it was a sexual right expected of every woman, no matter how wealthy her family was, to prostitute herself at least once, and for the females that were not attractive, according to Herodotus, this could potentially take years to fulfill. According to the noted Assyriologist Samuel Noah Kramer, kings in the ancient Near Eastern region of Sumer established their legitimacy by taking part in ritual sexual acts in the temple of Ishtar every year on the 10th day of the New Year festival. In Hammurabi's Code of Laws, dating back to about 1750 BC, the rights and good name of female sacred sexual priestesses were protected. The same legislation that protected married women from slander applied to sacred prostitutes and their children. They could inherit property from their fathers, collect income from land worked by their brothers, and dispose of property. These rights are pretty extraordinary, taking into account the role of women at the time. The Hebrew Bible uses 2 different words for prostitute, Zona and Kadesha. The word Zona simply meant an ordinary prostitute or loose promiscuous woman, but the word Kadesha literally means consecrated or holy and set apart. The Bible states that the Canaanite cults practiced these sex acts, but it had no place in the Israelite religion. Deuteronomy says that none of the daughters of Israel shall be Kadesha, nor shall any of the sons of Israel be Kadesh. The Akkadian counterpart of Inanna was Ishtar, the goddess Ishtar, and the Canaanite equivalent was Astarte, whom the Greeks accepted under the name of Aphrodite. The Roman equivalent was Venus. In ancient Greece, sacred prostitution was known in the city of Corinth, where the temple of Aphrodite employed a significant number of very charismatic female sex servants who were quite educated, known as hetairai, during classical antiquity. The Phoenician city Heliopolis, or Baalbek, continued to practice temple prostitution until the Emperor Constantine closed down the sex rights in the 4th century AD. In the southern and eastern Indian state Odisha, Devadasi is the practice of dedicating prepubescent and young adolescent girls from villages in a ritual marriage to a deity or a temple, who then work in the temple and function as spiritual guides, dancers, in service to the temple. Human Rights Watch reports claim that this is basically sex slavery, and at least in some cases the practice involves prostitution for upper caste members. This ancient custom is practiced in the far western regions of Nepal, where a young girl is still offered to the local temple to serve, as in India, but it's in decline. The Inca sometimes dedicated young boys as temple prostitutes, and the boys were dressed in girls' clothing, and chiefs and headmen would have ritual homosexual intercourse with them during religious ceremonies and on holidays. For the Aztecs, only female prostitution was tolerated that I'm aware of, and religious prostitution was widespread. Herodotus, in his work The Histories from 5th century BC, portrayed the Scythians as people who drank from the skulls of their enemies. Similar traditions were described for China in the 1st and 2nd centuries BC, and for Viking tribes by Magnus Olufsen, written in 1636. Discovered in the Goes Cave in Somerset, UK, this is said to be the earliest directly dated human skull cup ever found at approximately 14,700 years old. Human skull bowls were fashioned from the oval upper section of a human cranium and used as a cup. This practice is performed as a ritual in some sects of Tibetan Buddhism, where blood is consumed from the decorated human skull known as a kapala, which means skull in Sanskrit, as the practice is also known in Hindu Tantra. The skulls are usually from other deceased monks, but not always, and the purpose it is done is sometimes symbolic in some cases, but it's also often described to be for enlightenment purposes. When used for esoteric rituals, the history of the cranium's original owner can often have important bearing on the ritual's potency. The skull of a murderer or execution victim is believed to possess greater tantric power, for example, than the skull of one who has died from an accidental death or from an illness, let's say. The skull of someone who died peacefully in old age has virtually no occult power. Having the greatest potency are skulls of children who died during the onset of puberty. Plutarch said, "Man was made of earth, but the power that made a human body grow was the moon, source of menstrual blood." The lives of the very gods were dependent on the miraculous power of menstrual blood. In Greece, it was euphemistically called the supernatural red wine, given to the gods by Mother Hera. The esoteric secret of the gods was that their mystical powers of longevity, authority, and creativity came from the same female essence. The Norse god Thor, for example, reached the magic land of enlightenment and eternal life by bathing in a river filled with the menstrual blood of a giantess. Odin acquired supremacy by stealing and drinking the wise blood from the triple cauldron in the womb of the Mother Earth. Odin's theft of menstrual magic paralleled that of Indra, who stole the ambrosia of immortality in the same way. Indian myth, according to some occult interpretations, called this sacred fluid soma. Soma was drunk by priests at sacrificial ceremonies and mixed with milk as a healing charm. Therefore, it wasn't milk. Soma was especially revered on Samvara or Monday, the day of the moon, which has been, a documented symbol for a woman's monthly cycle since the Pleistocene, or Ice Age. Tantric worship of menstrual blood penetrated the Greco-Roman world way before the Christian era and was well established in the Gnostic period. This worship provided what they called a spiritual marriage, and it was practiced by Gnostic Christians like the Ophites. And another name for this was the way of Shaktism, meaning tantric yoni worship. Shaktism was declared a heresy before the 7th century AD, and subsequently the spiritual marriage, or love feast as it was also called, disappeared, and women were completely forbidden direct participation in Christian worship, and the menstrual mysteries basically went underground. Egyptian pharaohs became divine by ingesting the blood of Isis, a soma-like ambrosia called Sa. Its hieroglyphic sign was the same as the sign of the vulva, a yonic loop. And to many secret societies that go all the way back to ancient Egypt, the Holy Grail in its true original essence is the womb. it's still specified in the left-hand rite of Tantra that the priestess impersonating the goddess must be menstruating. In India, where menstrual blood is known as the Kula flower or Kula nectar, when a girl first menstruates, she's said to have borne the flower. In Chinese religion of Tao, the Way, they taught tantric doctrines, which later were supplanted by patriarchal philosophies. But the Taoists said a man could gain mystical insight, creativity, and wisdom, and in some cases become immortal, or at least very long-lived, by absorbing menstrual blood called red yin juice from a woman's mysterious gateway, otherwise known as the Grotto of the White Tiger, a symbol of life-giving female energy. So Chinese sagas call this red juice the essence of Mother Earth, the yin principle that gives life to all things, and they even claim that the Yellow Emperor became a god by absorbing the yin juice of 1,200 women. Taoist China considered red a sacred color associated with women, blood, sexual potency, and creative power. White was the color of men, semen, passivity, and death. Menstrual blood is full of stem cells, and in 2005, Thomas Rando at Stanford University in California and his team found that young blood returned the liver and skeletal stem cells of old mice to a much more youthful state during tests. The old mice were able to repair injured muscles as well as the young mice. So spooky things also happened in the opposite direction too. So when young mice received old blood, they appeared to age prematurely, and in some cases injured muscles did not heal as fast as would be expected. So we even see cases such as billionaire PayPal founder Peter Thiel, who believes transfusions of blood from young people can reverse his own aging process, and he allegedly pays $40,000 a quarter for blood transfusions from an 18-year-old by a California company called Ambrosia. So in light of these scientific findings, it seems that the general public is starting to reconsider old stories which were generally regarded as myth, such as those involving vampires, and in more modern times, secret occult blood rituals, which allegedly involve royalty and other initiated elite. My name is Robert Sepper. I'm an anthropologist and author, and I invite you to explore some suppressed mysteries with me in an attempt to unlock the riddles which have eluded any serious consideration in mainstream academia. Species with Amnesia, Our Forgotten History, Gods with Amnesia, Subterranean Worlds of Inner Earth, The Occult Secrets of Vril, and 1666, Redemption Through Sin. I appreciate all of the positive feedback, and I thank you very much for listening.